Great, amazing morning to you, Rise and Zion. You know I'm trying to get it together. This is how it works up in here. We're trying to get it together. And Sean is trying to really act like, I know my birthday is in a couple days and all. And I am, thank God, if God continues to grace me with this time, that I will get a little older and not a problem. But why is he trying to act like I really don't know? Like, I tried to come up with y'all remember that song, you old heads? 1, 2, 3, the crew is called. And I missed that little part. I couldn't remember how to work. Well, the crew is called. Well, the crew is called Coffee Conversation with Collette this morning. Rise and shine, up and at 'em. It's a phenomenal new day. You know what? If you are here, the two things we are granted right now is what? A choice and a chance. I got that from my moose. So thank you so much for that. And we're going to have a choice to have a conversation that matters. And we're going to have a chance to give to a station that matters. You like how we put that together? Because I asked on yesterday, you all know that I did my submission. Y'all, my hair, y'all see my curl? Y'all just supposed to help me. Now I can't. Right. We're coming up here looking crazy on the camera. Thank you. So I gave my contribution. That was, I wrote to the station. I told you all that's a $250 pledge. That was just a small part of what I'm intending to do for the station, but it was just a start. And I want you all to consider doing the same thing because we talked about wealth. And it's really not even a consideration. It is a call to action is what I'm asking you because the knowledge that you gain from this station and the ability that you have to share your voice and what you believe it is what it is, your expectations, your experiences. A lot of you have your own TV shows when you call in to other people's shows without even paying for the airtime or having sponsorship. So you know how this works. So at the end of the day, if we don't understand how to put a value into what is important to us, there will be no legacy. And I'm not going to be a part of that. I'm not going to be one that sits in that room, as so many of us do, that say, oh, I wish I could. Oh, well, what happened to them? Oh, well, why aren't they around anymore? Because you didn't realize the value until you lose it. And sometimes that is just so who we are in every aspect of our life. You don't understand the freedom until you don't have it anymore. You don't understand the compassion until you need it for you. You don't understand how to work selflessly to make things better until there's a situation in which you need someone to work selflessly to make it better for you. Do you want me to go on and on? And then we tied in the political part because you all keep thinking that you're going to get a savior through these elected officials. Did you all just see yesterday? Now, Detroit City Councilman Gabe Leland has been indicted for bribery charges. Kwame Kilpatrick was indicted. Now let's see how much time he's going to get. Let's see what this looks like. But I'm just saying, like, what's that song by, was it Human Link? I'm only human. Y'all see, I'm trying to roll with it. So I'm trying to get you all gay with, it's Friday, everybody. It doesn't stop my week. My week goes on 7 days straight. But I'm just saying, if you can't find something to identify with and kind of laugh a little in the seriousness of it, then something is wrong with us. Because this moment right here is what matters to us. But I'm saying, like, aren't you all tired of constantly giving your voice to people who are only human? They're only going to do what they're going to do, and you should expect them to do just that. So, of course, the article yesterday in the Detroit News said that it was in the sum of some $15,000 since last year, but you all know it was more than that. That is just what they were able to put on the books. But to me, it sure wasn't enough to go to jail for. It's not enough to lose your city council seat for. It's not enough to tarnish your legacy for. But people say, well, Collette, that's not fair because at the end of the day, it's not you. Well, I know it's not me, but I'm not going to do that. Would some people say that you can be bought, but bought for that? No. If you're going to think about buying me, you better come up with something with the B on there, like billions. Because, people throw millions around now like it's just hundreds. Like, oh, millions. No, the new is B. So if you think about buying me, if you think there's a cost to me, you better add a B in there. B, like 1 billion, 2 billion. Are you kidding me? Like, do you think about the atrocity of that? That you are supposed to, and this is just this example with City Councilman Gabe Leland, you're supposed to be here to have a voice. Now, you're coming off of legacy. Your dad was an elected official in Wayne County. Now you become an elected official in the city of Detroit for the city of Detroit, for the citizens in your district, and you come up here and do a clown move, then now you're indicted. Are you serious right now? But I mean, there's a slew of us who are indicted. I mean, the indictments, though, they don't just stop at the city council level. I mean, you go up to Congress, you go just on all forms of government, but I'm just saying that is the problem. You all saw the clip yesterday from Jason Riley. What did he say? That there is no growth for black folks through black elected officials. Well, not so much through white elected officials either. It goes back to the morals that you have for you, the discipline that you have for you, the goals that you have for you. And sometimes you have to unlearn to relearn. Did you get that? Great, amazing morning to you. One of my great friends from high school, Lenny, thank you so much. He sends over these little tidbits and then it connects me into these other things. And I saw this young man and the title caught me. You have to unlearn to relearn. Because what we were told is what we live and thrive on right now, but you realize that was not to our benefit. Do you get that? The process and the cycle that we go through in these Americas, in this educational school system, is not necessarily, it wasn't built for us. So when we sit and talk about wealth and you want to sit and talk about doing the same things that they do to acquire wealth, well, they didn't do what they said to do to acquire wealth. We talked about our own president, Donald Trump, and the New York Times did an amazing investigative piece on him and says that all he's done is duck and dodge and con and manipulate and maneuver to hide his wealth, grow wealth, use relationships to get more money, to grow what he believes more wealth, failure after failure, but still keep getting money because it's relationships, because this is how America was built. And now he's the president. Isn't that like the chickens coming home to roost? So everything that you wanted to hide of who America was under this ideology and the dream of America, we now have front, face, and center as the president of these United States. You don't find any irony in that? And at the end of the day, he can consistently flaunt his wealth. At the end of the day, he can consistently talk about the legacy that he's going to create and how he uses politics to do it. And we, as people of color, are sitting on the sideline talking about how we're going to best groom somebody to represent us. Why aren't they giving us our 40 acres and a mule? They were never going to give us that anyway. We weren't even going to get freedom if it wasn't for a bigger picture. It wasn't because of us. I'm going there on this Friday. And you can choose to be a part of it or not. You can sit back and listen, have your opinion about it. But this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. You all know, again, we are raising funds, right? So I'm going to, again, ask all of you to realize the importance of this station and to make a donation. No matter how big, no matter how small. This is holiday time. You could easily get a group of your friends, your family, instead of buying gifts, those items that we have that then sit on the table, or you re-gift them to someone else. You know what I'm talking about. The stuff, the $10, the little groups that you have at your jobs, and, you want to spend $10, don't spend more than $20 on a gift, and then someone really doesn't like it and they give it to someone else, or it's still wrapped up, and then they figure they're going to re-gift it to someone this year. That's what happens. Take that money and donate it over here, because it's a value. And then you could even get a package. I told you all, we have packages. So you could even get ads. Right? So, like for the $200, it's a small business package. You get 50 30-second spots for a month. Hello? All of you all are in businesses. That's a perfect way to advertise and to create a conversation that matters. And, of course, to get your name out there and to brand. So we're going to keep talking about that. That is what my request is of you. I don't ask a lot of you outside of being able to open up your mind, because it's your mind and your brain. I want you to realize that there's power in the brain and there's power in your action, and that we have to do better to have a different result. So in the onset of this conversation on this morning, on this beautiful Friday morning, I'm going to go to a clip from Jason Riley. I loved him yesterday. He's from the Manhattan Institute. A lot of you, he was a reporter for the Wall Street Journal. You might think he's a little conservative, but I thought he was on point. So I want to share a little bit more about a conversation that he was having about false power. What does it look like? Please stop helping us. Let's go to the clip.
Please stop helping us, how liberals make it harder for blacks to succeed. Author Jason L. Riley. If I were to tell you that I've taken this book around with me to several cookouts just around town in political circles, and it's raised a few eyebrows, just the title alone, and sparked conversation. What would you think about that?
I think the publisher would be happy
Indeed,
to hear that.
indeed.
But no, it's not. It's not surprising. I've had a similar reaction. When I went to get the jacket photo taken, the photographer was black, and he asked me, "What's the title of your book?" And it was an immediate conversation starter. It does that.
You touch a lot of third rails in this book. You touch a lot of third rails. You go from President Obama, the black president. You talk about voter ID. You even, at the conclusion, a third rail that you touch, and I want to get on that, talk about that a little later on, but you talk about the acquittal of George Zimmerman. That's really a third rail in the black community. Talk to me about how you have come up with these thoughts and brought things together for this book that typically is not thought of in the way that you've written in the black community.
Well, a lot of these ideas come from reading the two people that I dedicate the book to, Thomas Sowell and Shelby Steele, two black conservatives, both affiliated with the Hoover Institution, academics who have done a lot of research in this area and written about it for many years. And I'm familiar with their work and thought, you know, a younger generation of blacks should be saying the things they're saying for a new generation of readers. And that was part of the impetus for writing the book.
You're an independent, and we start off chapter 1, Black Man in the White House. Talk to me about that, Barack Obama.
Well, I think Obama's presidency, his first election in 2008, was kind of the culmination of a civil rights vision that pushed political power as a means of raising blacks in America. And I think, obviously, gains were made with the Civil Rights Act of '64 and the Voting Rights Act of '65. Since then, however, liberals, black liberals in particular, have made political power a priority, electing more black officials. And I think the Obama presidency was the culmination of that vision. And I wanted to say, so we've got that now. What do the black masses, so to speak, to use a dated term, have to show for it? And that was really what prompted that chapter. And what I get at in there is the history of groups that have gone that route. They've pushed political power before they've pushed economic power.
And you talk about the civil rights leaders who marched with King, the King-era civil rights leaders. You talk about it being an industry. Tell me about that. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, yes, I think what you have on the left today is a group of individuals and organizations that are searching for relevance. I think the big battles have been fought and won. And the trouble they have today is convincing people that the problems they're calling attention to are the true problems that blacks face. And I think they've really become parodies of what they used to be under King. It's as if the NAACP spends its time scouring the nation for sightings of Confederate flags or white use of the N-word, saying, ah, there you go, see, nothing's changed. Don't hold blacks responsible for their socioeconomic situation today when we still have Donald Sterling's out there or Cliven Bundy's out there or someone waving a Confederate flag at a Tea Party rally. And I think that's a search for relevance. I don't think those, or racism in general, is what is primarily holding blacks back today. And racism has not been the primary barrier to black advancement for some time.
Well, I want to go back to something you said. Battles have been fought and won when it comes to the black community. But what do you say to the disparities in the jobless rate in this country? African Americans still, to this day, have the highest unemployment rate in this nation. It's been that way since the inception of bringing us to this country. Also, there's disparities in education. There are predatory lending situations where African Americans are targeted for these loans that make them default or foreclose. There's so many other issues out there. I mean, let's just say the criminal justice system as well. And that's one of the reasons why President Obama came out after the George Zimmerman verdict, because there is a thought and there's a feeling and there's fact to base upon that African Americans are at a disproportionate level given higher sentences for things like crack cocaine versus powder cocaine, and also in jail for different things versus a white person. So talk to me about that when you say the battles have been fought and won.
Well, I guess I'd take issue with the premise. You said that you pointed to unemployment rates and said, for instance, that they've been that way since we came here to this country. No, they haven't. If you go back to the first part of the 20th century, as far back as the 20s, 30s, 40s, even into the 50s, you will see black labor participation rates higher than white labor participation rates. You will see, if you go back to census studies coming out of slavery in the 1870s, 1880s, 1890s, well up into the 1940s, you will see a rate of two-parent households higher among blacks than among whites. So you have to look at the trends that were already in place before some of the major civil rights legislation passed. You had between 1940 and 1960 a 40-point drop in the black poverty rate in America. 40 points between 1940 and 1960, before a Voting Rights Act, before a Civil Rights Act. Now, that trend continued after the acts were passed, but at a much slower rate. At best, they were continuing a trend already in place.
Well, with LBJ, we began the war on poverty, and the war continues. There has been poverty, and I understand, you know, you're talking about the census and out of slavery and in the 50s and 60s, but the quality of jobs, what kind of jobs? There's a big difference in at that time versus now when you have people in management positions, the President of the United States, versus being in the lower end of the spectrum, the kind of the farming jobs, agriculture, agrarians, housekeepers, things of that nature.
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I'm talking about skilled jobs. Blacks were joining the skilled professions at faster rates prior to affirmative action policies, which began in earnest in the 1970s, than they were after those policies were put in place. Teachers, craftsmen, and so forth. Blacks were joining the professions at a higher rate prior to the passage of these policies. Again, we almost without thinking credit policies like affirmative action for helping to swell the ranks of the black middle class, increase the number of black college graduates. In fact, affirmative action has had the opposite effect. And we have 40 years of evidence to look at regarding affirmative action policies. I'll give you a quick example.
Yes.
At the University of California, in the entire state system, racial preferences in college admissions were banned back in 1996 through a voter referendum. After that ban took place, black college graduation rates at the University of California rose by more than 50%. And they didn't rise in general. They also rose in the most difficult disciplines of math and science and engineering, again, by more than 50%. A policy intended to increase the ranks of the black middle class was in fact producing fewer black college graduates than we otherwise would have had.
In the book, you cite Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, and you talk about affirmative action. Talk to me about that and how you, I guess, espouse his philosophy with that.
Well, again, I think whether you're talking about Clarence Thomas or Thomas Sowell or Shelby Steele, they'll say, let's look at the track record. What is working and what isn't working? And when it comes to something like affirmative action, what the evidence shows is that affirmative action is mismatching kids with schools. And what I mean by that is that it often sets up kids to fail. It takes smart kids who might do well at a less selective school, funnels them into a more selective school, and in that more selective school, they're more likely to drop out altogether or switch to an easier major. A quick example of this is a study done of MIT, black students at MIT some years ago. Black students enrolled at MIT scored in the top 10% on their math SAT scores of all kids in the country.
I didn't want us to get into the further details of this piece because it would change the narrative. I'll send and post a link to continue that conversation if you're following me on social media. But I wanted you to get the premise of the initial part of the conversation, in which please stop helping us. Have you realized that there's a narrative that has been shaped through who we are, who we believe ourselves to be, and who the government has put on, forced upon us, I believe, as their platform, because that's exactly what it is. It's a conversation piece. It doesn't mean that the results are directly tied in or directly correlates to what the conversation is, because you can look at the track record and see that clearly it has not proven to be beneficial about what they say they're doing to help us. And so I just thought it was interesting that even in the interview, the perception of facts that were given about who we were, there aren't jobs, what the numbers look like, still to this day can be dispelled based on what we hold true and the values of what we say we are and who we are and what we're going to do. And that is what I believe is innately the problem of why we can't get any further, because yet again, we're still putting the ownership on someone else. So what happens if we don't have someone else to blame? I'm just asking us this morning. So if we can't say, well, it was that elected, it was that dang old city council member that we elected, and now we can't get this money to help ourselves. If we don't have him to blame, then what? If we say, well, it's because the Congressman Conyers seat still hasn't been filled because City Council member Brenda Jones, you don't know what she's doing, and she's trying to fight this little short period of time. We're already in October. You only have 2 more months for it to have been your term, and then Rashida Tlaib has won, and then she's going to go on to take on the seat. But we'll say, well, it's because she doesn't know, and then it's not fair. Then maybe that's why we're not getting the representation that we need, and then that's why it's not helping for us. And then we'll say, okay, well, for the mayor, well, the city council really defers to the mayor because there's no strong leadership, because the legislative body really does do the work. They're supposed to do the work, but they've deferred to Mayor Duggan for whatever reason. And so now Mayor Duggan is just running everything and doing deals and talking about auto insurance and trying to run the schools and whatever it is he wants to put his hands into. And so then we sit and say, oh, well, because now he's white, and then all the white people are coming downtown and all the values are going up. So the black people, we can't go downtown because they don't want us downtown. And so now we can't even experience downtown. And then our homes, they're all depleted and dilapidated, and it's blightful because, as Dr. Claude Anderson said, that it went to neighborhoods, and then we took the neighbor out, and now it's just a hood. Because we don't then sow into where we live, and we don't look to beautify where we are. We keep waiting for everybody else to do it for us, and then we won't start businesses in our own communities. And then if we don't start them, or if we do start them, then people won't support us in our own communities that look like us, because then we sit and say, well, who does she think she is, or who does he think he is, because they had the gall, they had the nerve, they had the audacity to believe that they could start a business and hope that people that look like them could support them. So now we ride through and we see all these blank storefronts, but you'll have a Chinese food place, a nail salon, or a dialysis center, or a church on the block. And so that's what we've become used to. And then if we don't have anyone else to blame, what is there? Did I give a kind of synopsis that was good enough, or did you find any way that you fit into any of those? Or the NAACP, as some folks have said, that all they do is look around the country for something that will give them a plant, to give them a platform to say, oh, well, they use the N-word. Oh, okay, or some corporation isn't doing such and such, and I can jump on that, as opposed to actually working to advance colored people, quote unquote. So if indeed we took all of that away, I believe, as Jason Riley is suggesting, if indeed we took all of it away and just said, to thine own self, what does it look like for us? What are we doing to help us? Then where would we be? Because the ownership is on us. And I know a lot of you are going to say, oh, well, Collette, but it's all these other factors. But it's always been all these other factors. You all act like these factors have just come up. We're in America. We know the history of America better than anyone. So it's always been these factors. It's always been these challenges. It's always been the glass ceiling. It's always been our inability to get capital. It's always been our inability to have partnerships. There's always been to collaborate. It's always been. And so because we know that it's always been, and now we're sitting here talking about why we don't have wealth, why we don't have political clout, therefore we don't have legacy, whose fault is it? Us. We, us, me and my, you, us. Whose fault is it? And then we won't have anything else to talk about. And so then maybe in our churches, the only thing we'll sit and talk about is we'll sit and spew a little bit about what Dr. King said. And then sometimes, depending on how we feel, we'll talk about what Malcolm said. And then at the end of the day, we'll sit and keep talking about what Jesus said based on whatever version of the Bible that you're reading through the interpretation of those who then transcribed it, or however you want to say, who said that they wrote it down. And then we want to sit and tell you what you should do, because what the end is going to be, and then what the lessons that you're supposed to learn. And then at the end of the day, none of that is better for us. We get this emotional high when we're in that church, and then we walk out the door and our lives are exactly where they are. I'm just asking. So is it really about them, or is it really about us? Is it the simple fact that we aren't wealthy, we don't have wealth because of them, or is it because of us? Is it really because we don't know how to move the political realm, because we don't want to do the work to pull our money together to buy the legislators, because that's exactly what it's about? Do you actually think that the simple reason why they ask fundraising for you to give them money to run a campaign to be elected is no different than to keep them in that seat? You have to raise the money to give them the money to get the legislation pushed through. You didn't understand that? And so then if we don't understand how to manipulate that, and people think that that's a bad word. Manipulation isn't a bad word. We're in America. Stop it. There's no moral compass for America. The only people that are moral in America are people of color. No one else is moral. Stop. And that morality that we impose upon ourselves hinders us. It hinders our communities. It hinders who we are to each other and our ability to create a lasting legacy, because we used to have it for our families. It used to be important to us. We won't even share credit. Let me just say that. We don't even understand how to boost our children's credit by piggybacking. That's all they do. That's all the other group does. You have good credit, then they put their children on it. They'll buy a house, put their children on it, pay off the house, their children's credits grow. They'll get a car, they put the children's credit name on it, they go ahead and let that go. But what we do is we know that Big Mama got credit, and that's the only person that don't have credit. No one else will build credit. You won't have credit. You'll use Big Mama's credit until Big Mama passes on, and then we're all sitting there looking crazy because you done use and abuse Big Mama's credit, and then we won't have anything else. We don't understand credit. We don't understand money. We don't understand wealth. We don't understand legacy. So where are we? And maybe you don't want to hear that. Clearly, I guess that's not the case, because you guys aren't calling me this morning, so you don't want to have this conversation. Do you want me to be all nice and fluffy right now? It's so serious right now. It is so serious right now. This is like the make or break time for us right here in America. You consistently see all this stuff that's going on, all these atrocities that's going on, and you see it live and in color. It's not what we used to read about in books. It's not like the scandal from Nixon and Watergate. It's happening right now. The consistent abuse of power and privilege in these Americas, and we're sitting here laying dormant talking about what they don't give us and why we don't have. Do you actually believe that they care? That this is a conversation? You actually think that folks sit in a room and say, okay, well, the people of color, the Negroes, they want this, and so we need to figure out how we're going to give it to them? No, they don't. They don't even have to sit and have a conversation about how to oppress us, because we oppress ourselves. We get so mired down in the nothingness of it. The conversation, think about the conversation that you're going to have today. Think about the conversation with the people that you talk to on a day-to-day basis. What do they talk about? They talk about some kind of gossip. They talk about whatever was bad, something happened in the news, somebody got shot, somebody got robbed. They talk about the shenanigans that's going on at their jobs, or the shenanigans in their family. But none of the conversations are about, hey, guess what? You can still register to vote. Are you getting people registered to vote? Just for the simple fact of voting. Guess what? Did you understand what's going on? Do you understand how we can create wealth? Let me ask you about your credit score. Have you pulled up your credit report? You know you can get them free every year. Did you look at them and not be afraid to address the issue? Because a lot of times we get information, we just look at it, and we're afraid, and then we put it down. Put it down isn't going to fix it. You pick it up, and you figure out how to address it. But we're afraid. Oh, okay, so now I'm afraid. I can't do that. I'm afraid. We can't get it together because we're afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid of being successful? Because we don't know what success is, because no one's told us that we can be successful. And the people that we see as successful, then we don't want to put in the work that they put in. We don't want that. We just want it instantaneously. Or it's not the way that we want success. Before I go to the line, I want to make sure I acknowledge we had the homegoing as in the paper. The homegoing of civil rights pioneer, executive William C. Brooks. He's passed on at 85 years of age, as reported by the Detroit News. He was an economic and civil rights pioneer. He fought for the advancement of young people in the city that relatives say he adopted as his home. He was a former General Motors executive and appointee of 3 past presidential administrations. He always remained grounded, those who knew him said. He led several Michigan companies, minority business advancement efforts, and the board of Detroit Public Schools. He passed away on Monday. With his wife of 62 years, Elizabeth Betty Brooks, at his side, he was 85. Did you get that? So there are a couple things at play, and our thoughts and prayers and condolences to you and the family. And thank you for sharing him with us. But did you get some key points that goes back to what Jason Riley said? At the end of the day, it was family. You keep your family intact. Who's been married for 62 years? Who's been married for 6 years? Can I ask you who's been married for 2 years? What about 6 months? 2 months? What about people even committed in a relationship at all? Do people even commit to relationships anymore? I mean, come on. Let's just talk about why we keep doing what everybody else does, and then it doesn't work for us, and we wonder why. And that's across the spectrum. I'm just asking, maybe I need to have bought a mirror today so I can look at me, then I can turn around, you can look at you, because it's really about us right now on today. We're going to have these conversations. Like, it's not going anywhere. I'm about to go to the line. I hope that you are going to say something that you believe is going to benefit us, as opposed to coming up with an excuse, because I don't want to hear anymore about what they've done. Yesterday, Dr. Anderson gave us the tiers. We got the model of how we create wealth. We're too busy trying to determine who's going to control it. We got all these mega churches but don't have banks. We haven't taken the money to be able to create a bank so we can have money to empower ourselves, because Negroes only want to be the head one important, and everyone else is just supposed to follow them. Isn't that the mess? So if you're pushing an S550, you should want everyone in your congregation to push an S550, if that's what they choose. You should want everyone to not have debt. You should want everyone to have high credit. You should want everyone to be empowered. You should want everyone to have a compassion for the least of these. You should want everyone, not just you, not just a select cool crew, like when you're back in high school, the cool club, the cool kids club, remember them? Like you, if you didn't fit in because you weren't cool, whatever that was. And we still do that as adults. People that we shun, people that we don't talk to, even to this day. You'll walk past people today. You won't talk to them because you'll think you're better than them, and all our skin color is the same. Do you think that anybody else looks at you and says, oh, well, you're better than so-and-so? No. You're still all black and brown people, and they'll still look down at their noses at you. And we're sitting up here not equating and not trying to relate to each other. And then not following the steps to make sure that we have what we should deserve. And don't sit and try to tell me that when we did have our own communities, they really weren't our communities, because they still worked for somebody else and they didn't recycle the dollars. Stop. It's more than what we had right now, and it's more than what the majority of us are doing right now. So let me just say that on that note. And now I'm going to go to the line. So thank you so much for your patience. Great, amazing morning to you.
Good. Great morning. Amazing morning to you, Queen.
Thank you.
Excellent subject as usual.
Thank you.
You know, Queen,
Yes.
we had the most perfect example in this city of Detroit. And that was, and many people, they for some reason, his name is never really put in the equation.
Okay.
And that's the most honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Okay.
You're talking about 1930.
All right.
You're talking about the 1933, 34, where this man who only had a third grade school education, a son of a sharecropper, took black children out of the public school system.
Okay.
And then he started his own school, homeschoolings.
Okay.
He said if a man won't treat you right, he won't teach you right.
Okay.
He was just that bold.
All right.
And he dealt with the people who were actually rejected by our own people. Because those who had so-called letters in front of their names or some form of degree or whatever, they refused to join up with that group.
Sure.
And so he dealt with the people who were rejected.
Sure.
And they took their nickels and their dimes, And they right inside of America, the most powerful country on the planet, the most racist country on the planet.
Yeah.
He went to work. He didn't ask the government for anything. He took those people that were among them, and he took their deals and whatnot, and he went about the business of building a nation.
Okay.
Right inside of America, right in the belly of the beast.
Okay.
He went to work. And he built an empire.
Okay.
He exported and imported. He had the largest newspaper by the time he departed. He had the largest newspaper on the planet,
Okay.
where they were selling over 1 million copies a week.
Okay.
He imported more fish than any nation on the planet. He was building homes in Chicago.
Okay.
He built community.
Okay.
When
King,
he built the palace in Chicago.
King, stay there for 1 second. Stay there for 1 second. I need to ask you. So, with all the greatness of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his teachings, what has happened to that? What has happened?
You know, what has happened to it is it's in the process of Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Okay.
And it goes back to really what you're talking about, Queen.
Okay.
When you think about it, we still had diseases in us.
Okay.
You know what? Honorable Elijah wasn't able to cure those diseases that we embody. That envy, that jealousy,
Okay.
that pride, that arrogance still existed.
Yeah.
But he had laws that kind of kept us in line. You know, those restricted laws
Sure.
that kept you in line.
Sure.
Because with the people who have become savage or uncivilized, like the way we have been breeded and raised in America, we were uncivilized. So you had to put strong laws on people to keep them under control. So in the nation, you have restricted laws. Yeah, you can't do this, you can't do that.
Right.
If you do that, we put you out
Yes.
for a certain period of time. This is the reason why Malcolm was put out, because he broke certain laws.
Yeah.
No one was exempt from those laws. That's how the nation actually stayed strong, was the laws.
Sure.
And so when
And
you
wait,
think
and say
about it,
King,
understand.
and King, and stay there for 1 second. And I want everybody to understand that I don't have a problem with that. I can't come into your house and tell you how to govern your house. I can't come into your business and tell you how to govern your business. I can't come into your church or your mosque or your synagogue. Absolutely. And so maybe that's, to his point, maybe that's why we've had the problems that we have, is because we need law. We need structure. We need discipline. And when folks treat us as human, maybe that's where we fall to the wayside, because maybe we still can't get through this indoctrination through slavery, that we have to be still told what to do. We still have to be governed by somebody. And if not, that there's a consequence or a repercussion to what that is if we don't do it. Because it seems that once we get free will, we're all over the place. We're on some shenanigans, willy-nilly, but when you know the boss is on point in the office, you act right. But when the boss ain't around, you start hee-hawing and playing and shucking and jiving. It's no different. So I'm not mad. People say, well, whatever the comments were about the Nation of Islam and they did this. Not whatever I'm not governing or judging your house at all, because those who were part of it, committed to it, there was progress. And so I'm asking us today, because we don't want law, we don't want structure as it pertains to us. But without the law and structure, what has it done? Look at where we are right now. Please continue, King, and call as I see. I'm going to get to
You know, many times, Queen, when we walked into the mosque, we may have walked in with all kind of problems. Drug addicts, alcoholics, pimps, hustlers.
Right.
I mean, we came in there, but we couldn't stay that way.
Yeah.
And so it was really, the mosque was a place of cleaning up. There was soap there to clean up those impurities.
Sure.
And it didn't happen overnight.
Sure.
It's not going to happen overnight for us or whatever.
Sure.
You know, because we've been this way for so long.
Sure.
It's ingrained in most of us, whatever.
Sure.
So it ain't going to happen overnight. It'll be down the road before we really get where God is satisfied the way we should, but we should be striving to go that way. And
Absolutely.
that's the biggest problem. You
Absolutely.
know, Wayne.
Absolutely.
See, because we're quick. It's,
Yeah.
you know, the one thing about the messenger, he knew what had happened to us.
Yeah.
And he didn't go to them. He didn't go to them complaining.
Sure.
He went about the business of healing the problem.
Sure.
And he put most of it in our face.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, change had to start within our own self. Look in the mirror at yourself.
Yeah.
Think about before you speak.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times within ourselves, we won't say it, and we hide behind a mask with one another. See, all of us wear masks,
Yes.
and we phony.
Yes.
And we've been wearing a mask so long that we think that's our face.
Right.
But it's a mask.
Right.
And so we be envious.
Yeah.
We don't say it. We be envious. We be jealous of one another.
Yeah.
You know, all these is within ourselves, but we won't tell nobody.
Yeah.
You know, we hide it.
Yeah.
But we'll say little things to hurt you.
Right.
We'll do little things to hurt you.
Yeah.
You know, but it's in us. It's like a cancer.
Yeah.
And that's our biggest problem. And that's one thing about the nation. And I love Minister Farrakhan.
Mm-hmm.
And he has been the most perfect example of the work of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Okay.
Minister Farrakhan has been his prize student is Minister Louis Farrakhan. If you study his history,
Sure.
if you study how he was raised by his mother in a single home,
Sure.
and how he gave up his musical life,
Sure.
understand, to be a part of a nation
Sure.
where he had to run and mop floors
Sure.
and raise a family of 9.
Sure.
He's been with his wife for 65 years.
Yeah.
And I love his family because from his daughters to all of his sons, 9 of them,
Yeah.
they stand with their dad, understand, like a solid wall.
Yeah.
Regardless of what he's been through, them children have been with their dad, and I wish that my family would have been that way with me. I wish, and I admire that, Queen, because
Sure.
I see it in my own family, my children,
Yeah.
they don't have that. But I
Yeah.
looked at his children, and the one thing the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told him when he embarked upon the work, he said, don't worry about your family,
Yeah.
because God is going to bring them around. You just
Sure.
keep doing right,
Sure.
and
Well,
they're
let me
going to
just-
come around. And that's
Absolutely,
what
ma'am.
happened.
And absolutely. And I just wanted to say this. I'm about to. I got to make sure I get everybody in before the
Yes,
break.
ma'am.
But I want to. Do you all get everything that he said? And see, that's what I believe our problem is. We get caught up in the doctrine versus the example. Get the example. People have shunned away from the Nation of Islam, in my opinion, because of the roles that they see. That's how the nation has governed itself. You can't judge it. You either decide you want to be a part of it or you don't. But look at the example. Because I think we miss the example because we get caught up in, well, I wouldn't do this, and I wouldn't wrap my hair, and I wouldn't be, and I wouldn't. That's not what this thing is about. Can you just get an example? And so fine, if you don't want to study under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, if you don't want to study under Farrakhan, if you don't want to study under the Son of Man, if you don't want, whoever you don't want to study under, are you taking the good of it then and making it applicable to you? Because you can't tell me that there isn't good out of people who've weathered the storm and have been married for 62 years, 65 years. Are you kidding me? Do you know what they've had to go through because they were growing as people and all of our imperfections? And then you have on top of them the scrutiny of everybody, and then the limelight of it, and then the celebrity of it, and then just all of everything with your personal self, and that you still stayed committed, and you've raised children, and you've kept a family structure, you've kept a nucleus, no matter what it looked like, you didn't walk away from it. You all get that? Because see, that's our problem. We don't want to take the good examples and make them applicable to us. We get caught up in all the names and stuff. I'm just trying to say, can you keep your family together? I'm just trying to say, are you even committed to even marry a person and have children with them and stay with them and raise those children? I'm just trying to say, are you honest enough to say, you know what? I shouldn't have been having these children out of wedlock, and I'm going to do better versus making it the norm. That, okay, well, we're going to be all right because your mom and them over there, and I'm just doing my part.
And you know, Queen, you know, the dress code for the women was much more difficult than it was for the men. The men put on a suit,
Sure,
white shirt, a bow tie,
sure,
which was the norm of America.
sure.
But you imagine here was sisters walking around with mini skirts on, and they Elijah Muhammad come along and say, cover that up. Stop going around jiggling and you know how difficult that is for, because women likes to be, I can't speak for a woman, but I know it's got to be difficult for a woman because a woman's, God has shaped her in such a way that our body is shaped that it gets man's attention. And it's designed that way for the continuation of life or procreation.
Sure.
So she's shaped it in a way. He calls her body, he calls her adornment.
Well,
Men
we'll stay
adore
there,
them.
King. We'll stay there because we can go and call us. I'm going to get you all. Don't go anywhere. But let me stay there because I think that's a different conversation, too. And one of my really good friends from college is in the nation to this day. And let me just say, that is her choice. I never had a problem with however she chose to wrap herself or cover herself or whatever it looked like. What I had a problem with, though, is that the men, because she had been married several times, because the man that she would marry who was in the nation would then leave her for a woman that wasn't in the
That's
nation.
right.
So let's talk about it. So we can talk about it.
And that's but Queen, that's my point.
Yeah.
That's my point, what you're saying. It's much difficult for a female. That's why I have the uttermost respect when I see when one can come along and she can cover up that beauty and walk with her head straight up and hang. I mean, she, regardless of what, because what you're saying, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I can't disagree with you on that.
Right.
Hell, I've had my shortcomings as far as that. Because when you see that woman without no clothes on and the skin and whatnot, it's a force. Jesus said he had to overcome the forces of nature within himself.
Yeah.
Sex is a force.
Yeah.
It's a force. It's
Let me
a
just
force.
tell you,
A woman is powerful.
Absolutely.
She's powerful, Queen.
Absolutely.
She's powerful. Love you, Queen.
We're powerful.
Have a blessed
I
weekend.
love you. Have a blessed week as well. I mean, but let me just tell you, you better get to the point where you're understanding how to make all that transfer into something that's going to be beneficial for who we are. It's not use what you got to get what you want. You don't even know what you want, and you don't even know what you got. Let me say that. Let's go to the line. Thanks for your patience. Great morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam, brother.
Okay, Thomas calling. You know, Malcolm X, he put out Malcolm Speak. That was the first part of our newspaper.
Yes.
Also, Collette, when I was a young boy, they used to have Jet, the Jet and Chronicles.
Yes.
I sold Jets and Chronicles. I did.
Okay.
All kinds. I told you before, we had all kinds of information in the street.
Yeah.
We had the Baptists. We had singing in the streets.
Yes.
Everywhere we went, we could get information.
Yes.
Back in the day when we was very young.
Yes.
Okay, some would say that the Nation of Islam didn't do anything. They the one decoded the Bible for you.
Okay.
They the one that told you where you come from. I told you after my mother passed, and I went south, and I talked to my great aunt, and I was talking to her about who was walking inside of our house, and I said I was listening to the ones that was from the Nation of Islam because they was talking to me.
Yeah.
And when I talked about my great aunt, the first thing she said, son, you follow them. And she the first one told me to say, everybody here is immigrants except the native Indian. Our people come from Africa, son, and our side of the family comes from South Africa. And son, you're a Zulu. As you grow up, you're going to know who you are. And so once you get back up there in Detroit, you go to the factory and so you can get a pension and Social Security. That's what I did. Let me tell you this, baby girl. In 16 months, I will be saving $15,000 a year. I ain't got to go get no loans. I ain't got no liens on this house. 2003, I paid for this house. And the woman in this house, the lady in this house, we've been around each other since 1965. I met her. I prayed to Allah to send me somebody to grow. And in 1973, we left LeMay and Elsa Ford, and we've been together. We've been married for 45 years.
Amen.
45 years, 41 years here on Audubon in Southampton. We got it South 1976. That's when the houses was at 21.9. Okay, now closing by telling you, Collette, here's the thing. You keep having somebody who's talking about what the nation. I told you, immigration integrated us from ourselves here in Detroit.
Thomas, this is
We
what I
had
need you to do.
Titans.
Hold on one second, Thomas. I don't want you to go
Yes.
anywhere. I'm up against
Yes.
a break, okay? Hold
Yes.
on with me through the break. We're going to continue the conversation. Everybody, you don't want to miss this. And I know it's a little strong for you. I know it's a lot for you because we're looking at ourselves instead of pointing the fingers at everybody else. But don't go anywhere. We're going to continue the conversation right here on TV 33 WHPS. We'll be right back. Thomas, hold the line.